There's a quiet calm in our home these days, a peace I wouldn't have thought possible just a few months ago. It's a calm we fought hard for, a difficult kind of peace that came only after we finally cut ties with David's mother, Meredith. I still remember the raw hurt and anger, the sheer disbelief I felt, in those first few weeks after Lily was born. It was a choice I never imagined making, but looking back, I know it was the only way to protect my family, and honestly, myself. You see, for a while, David and I had been married for about 3 years, and we decided it was time to expand our family. We were so excited when we found out I was pregnant. The whole 9 months felt pretty smooth, and David was just amazing through it all. We couldn't wait to meet our little girl. I had so much support from my family and friends, but there was this one person who just made everything incredibly complicated: David's mom, Meredith. Now, Meredith also has a daughter, Sarah, who is David's sister. Sarah and we've been best friends since middle school. We went through everything together, and even when I married David, our friendship stayed strong. Holidays, casual hangouts, we were always really close. But over time, things started to get a bit tricky between us, mainly because Sarah had been struggling with infertility. For years, she and her husband had been trying to have kids, with no luck. It was a brutal journey for her, and I always tried to be supportive. You could just see how much it hurt her every time someone announced a pregnancy. So, when David and I shared our news, I could sense Sarah's pain, even though she never said anything directly. I tried to give her space while still allowing myself to enjoy my pregnancy. It was a really tough line to walk, feeling guilty for my happiness while she was hurting. Then, after a smooth labor, our beautiful Lily was born. David and I were just over the moon. I was still riding that emotional roller coaster that comes with childbirth, you know? Just completely exhausted and overwhelmed with love. David stepped out for a moment to grab something from the car, and that's when Meredith walked in. Meredith, well, she's always been the type to tell people what to do, and she often doesn't know when to stop. She came in to meet Lily, gave me a quick hug, and seemed excited about her new granddaughter. But then, she said something that absolutely floored me. Instead of commenting on how beautiful Lily was, or how proud she was to be a grandmother, Meredith looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You know, it would really be best for Sarah if you stopped having more kids. She's been struggling with infertility and it is only fair to give her a chance to catch up." I was stunned. I mean, I had just given birth. This was the first thing out of her mouth? I literally had no idea how to respond. I was holding my newborn, still processing the miracle of life, and here was my mother-in-law telling me to put my family planning on hold for someone else. I was in total shock. But she didn't stop there. She kept going on and on about how hard it was for Sarah to watch me have children, how I should be considerate and just stop having kids for a while. She truly believed that my family's future should be dictated by Sarah's struggles. I felt like she was cornering me, asking me to make this impossible decision based on someone else's pain. I just sat there, clutching Lily, trying to comprehend what was happening. I was so tired, so emotionally drained, and now this. The anger started bubbling up, but I didn't know how to express it without causing a scene. Should I feel guilty? Was I supposed to just accept this? I finally managed to say, "I don't think it's fair to tell me how many kids I should have." It was the only thing I could think of. Meredith tried to backtrack a little, but it felt hollow. She still seemed to believe she was right. The rest of her visit was tense. She held Lily, made comments about how much she looked like David, but I could feel that heavy cloud hanging over us. I just wanted her to leave so I could process everything. When she finally did, I felt a huge wave of relief. I was hurt, confused, and just couldn't shake the feeling that she had completely overstepped. David hadn't been in the room for any of this, and I wasn't sure if I should even tell him. Part of me felt like he should address his mom, but another part didn't want to put him in the middle. So, I decided to call Sarah. She was my best friend, after all. The next day, I called her, hoping she'd understand. I needed to know if she truly felt that way, if Meredith had been speaking for her. When I asked, there was this long, stunned silence on the other end. Sarah was shocked. When she finally spoke, her voice was full of hurt. She had no idea why Meredith would say such a thing. She was completely blindsided, especially since Meredith didn't even know about her fertility problems. That was something only David and I knew. Sarah was so upset that Meredith would even suggest that. She told me that Meredith had been acting strangely for a while, but she hadn't realized how bad it was. A few days before, Meredith had almost been caught snooping through Sarah's drawers and personal items at her house. Meredith had tried to play it off as looking at pictures, but Sarah wasn't fooled. She suspected Meredith was digging for information, maybe about her fertility. That moment had been a huge red flag. It was one thing for Meredith to overstep with me, but to invade Sarah's privacy like that? Sarah realized Meredith had zero respect for boundaries. She was already going through so much with her infertility, and now her own mother-in-law was crossing lines in the absolute worst ways. I felt horrible for Sarah, and I understood her frustration completely. She said she'd been trying to keep things civil, but after the hospital incident and the snooping, it was clear Meredith didn't respect anyone's boundaries. Sarah was done. By the end of our conversation, she was in tears, telling me she couldn't take it anymore. The next few days were incredibly tense. I knew we couldn't let Meredith treat us this way anymore. I hadn't yet told David the full extent of my conversation with Sarah. But when Meredith called later that week, everything just exploded. She tried to act normal, asking about Lily, even hinting at another visit. I was so fed up. I just couldn't take it. I told her exactly how I felt, how inappropriate it was for her to comment on my family planning right after I gave birth. I didn't hold back. I could hear her getting defensive, but she just didn't seem to get it. She started claiming I was overreacting, that it was just postpartum hormones. She told me to calm down, not to take everything so personally. That set me off. I was already dealing with so much, physically and emotionally, and now she was invalidating my feelings? Was it really just my hormones? That's when I completely lost it. I told her I wasn't going to let her minimize my feelings or use my postpartum state to excuse her behavior. That was it. It was clear she couldn't see her actions for what they were, and she wasn't going to change. She was trying to twist everything to make me feel irrational, but I wasn't having it. The situation came to a head when Sarah called me again that day. She'd had her own conversation with Meredith, and things had gotten even worse. Sarah confronted Meredith about the snooping, how uncomfortable it made her feel. Meredith, of course, tried to deny it, but Sarah didn't back down. Then Sarah brought up what Meredith had said to me, and Meredith's response was the same: postpartum hormones. In the end, Sarah and I agreed, Meredith had crossed too many lines. We couldn't let her continue to invade our lives. Sarah, who had tried so long to keep the peace, finally realized it was time to cut ties for good. I called David and told him everything. As expected, he was furious. He hadn't realized the full extent of his mom's behavior, and he was angry she'd treated me that way, and how invasive she'd been with Sarah. He completely supported our decision to cut her off. We both knew it wouldn't be easy, but he agreed she wasn't respecting boundaries or us. And so, Meredith was cut off. It was a tough decision, but we knew it was the right one. We had to protect ourselves and our families from her toxic behavior. For a couple of weeks, it was actually peaceful. We thought maybe she'd finally gotten the message. But then Meredith started texting me, saying she didn't understand why I was upset, still blaming my postpartum hormones. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Then she started showing up uninvited at our house. I ignored the knocks, but then the calls, texts, and voicemails began. In one voicemail, she said if I didn't let her see Lily, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. David was caught in the middle. He tried to talk to her, but she turned everything on him, saying he was weak for letting me make decisions. That's when I truly saw it. She didn't just want a relationship, she wanted control. She texted Sarah too, saying she was heartbroken, but again, made it all about her. Sarah told her off, saying we wouldn't put up with her disrespect. Then, a few days later, Meredith showed up at my door. She didn't knock, she used a key she wasn't supposed to have and walked right in. I was holding Lily. I couldn't believe it. I told her to leave immediately. She started crying, saying she just wanted to see her granddaughter. I stood firm. I told her to return the key and leave, or I'd call the police. She left, but not without saying, "One day you'll regret pushing me away." That stuck with me. It just showed how entitled she felt. Things were calmer after that, but the tension lingered. Then David's brother, Mark, called him. Meredith had been trying to get Mark to talk to us, to convince us to change our minds. She was spiraling. Then she reached out to my aunt, trying to get her to talk to me, claiming I was pushing David away. Thankfully, my aunt called Meredith out and refused to get involved. I was furious she was dragging my family into it. After that, David ran into Meredith at the grocery store. I found out later. She tried to guilt-trip him, saying we were tearing the family apart. David, overwhelmed, told her we needed space. But she started crying, accusing him of abandoning her. She even screamed, attracting attention, making it look like he was the villain. David came home drained. It was hard for him to see his mom act like this, but I knew we had to keep our boundaries firm. Lily was our priority. Then, a few months ago, something truly unexpected happened. Sarah called me, her voice shaking. Meredith had been over at her house again while Sarah was out, using a key she wasn't supposed to have. When Sarah came home, she caught Meredith snooping through her personal things, red-handed. Sarah was absolutely furious. Meredith tried to deny it, but there was no mistaking what she'd done. That was it for Sarah. She confronted Meredith, making it clear their relationship was over. Meredith didn't take full responsibility, but Sarah was done. I was shocked, but honestly, relieved. Meredith's behavior had finally caught up with her. Sarah and I agreed, no more second chances. David and I made it clear to his family that we weren't having any more contact with Meredith. We told his relatives they needed to respect our decision if they wanted a relationship with us. Some didn't understand at first, and it felt like they were questioning us. But we knew we were doing the right thing. Then, David's cousin, Jessica, called. She apologized for not supporting us sooner, saying she finally understood the situation. It felt incredibly good to hear that. A few weeks later, some of David's other relatives, who had been on the fence, started coming around too. They acknowledged Meredith had crossed the line and that we weren't just making drama for no reason. It was a huge weight off our shoulders. By the time Lily turned 6 months old, things had calmed down significantly. There's so much less stress in our home. We can finally just be a family, without worrying about Meredith causing problems. Matt and I are stronger than ever. I feel so confident in our decision to cut Meredith off. It wasn't easy, but it was the right one. It's given us a safer, healthier space for Lily to grow up in, and for our relationship to thrive. Things aren't perfect, but they are infinitely better. Meredith isn't part of our lives anymore, and that has brought us so much peace. We don't have to worry about her manipulating or guilt-tripping us. It's just the three of us now, and we're focused on building a happy future together. It's been a tough journey, but we're in a better place now, and I'm just grateful we can move forward without all the drama and stress. Have you ever had to make such a difficult decision for the sake of your family's peace?